Hi guys, Jasmo here, and I just wanted to make a quick video with my recommendations for league starters and builds in 3.14 and a little bit of a meta prediction. So there are a lot of builds that have been nerfed, but there are still a lot of builds that just went under the radar and are still very powerful, and also builds that have been buffed like crazy. In particular, a lot of the builds that used skills which also have the Val component to that skill are definitely much stronger right now. In particular, something like Val Burning Arrow Elementalist. So let's talk about these builds. First build on the list, which I also shared on Twitter, was Elehit Raider. Elehit Raider was already very strong. It already had such good damage that it was a good boss killer early, as well as having great clear. It's a very solid quick build which will allow you to farm very quickly. It's pretty easy to start with it because again it's a ranger raider, very easy to play. It's a very straightforward build. This is definitely one of my top recommendations for this league start. Elehit Raider was very popular last league as well. Many people played it. You can check out on POE Ninja what do people use. There will not be specific POBs and guides for every build I'm recommending, but you can find every single one of those builds on POE Ninja, and that's what I would recommend you do, to check out what people are using, what items they're using, how do their passive skill trees look like. I will post a link to the POE Ninja for builds in the description, and there you can check out all of the builds. Next build that I would recommend is Blazing Salvo Saboteur. This one is mainly if you want to do boss killing, but also just for general gameplay. The clear speed is pretty good on it. You can put Detonate Mine on left click or right click and just hold that down as you're running. And the clear is gonna be pretty good, especially once you get your Tremor Rod. The Tremor Rod might be a little bit expensive this league, but you can still play without it. You level this build with Arc. I have multiple guides and runs of leveling Blazing Salvo Miner with Arc on my channel, so you can check that out. I started with Blazing Salvo Saboteur in Heist. It was a great starter then, and since then it has been buffed, so now it's even stronger. It's one of the best boss killers in the game. I would say the only thing that's better than that is the Soul Rest build, but that build is a little bit too complicated, so I'm not recommending that in that list. So Blazing Salvo Saboteur, as far as like regular builds to play, is pretty much the best boss killer of this list. So if you're mainly interested in boss killing, that's what I would recommend. The next build I would recommend is Cold Dot Occultist. Occultist has received a rework, which in effect is actually a pretty big buff to the damage and also the AoE and also the quality of life. Occultist is a very good ascendancy. In general, basically Witch is in a fantastic spot right now. Cold Dot Occultist is very good. The Val Cold Snap is insane right now. The dot didn't change that much, but it gets like a massive hit, which I have several ideas of what to do with that hit component of that. You could even make like an elementalist that would use it for a source of ignite for clearing, just like massive hit on the whole screen and ignite everything at the same time. So the Cold Dot Occultist itself is gonna be very strong and solid. You can adapt it to be very tanky and play it in hardcore. You can make it pretty zoomy with big AoE. It's a very good build to start with, and it's pretty straightforward and easy to play as well. The next skill that is also fairly straightforward is Elementalist. Elementalist with Ignite, you can play with Fireball or with Burning Arrow. Those are the two main skills that I would recommend. You can also do Armageddon Brand, but that would require something like a replica Ember Wake ring, so it's a little bit more complicated. But Fireball, Ignite, Elementalist, the build that I posted, the run for leveling that build on my YouTube, is going to be a very viable league starter. It has good single target damage, and Val Fireball has been buffed a little bit by having reduced duration of the soul gain prevention. So slightly buffed, and it was already good before. And then a skill that has been buffed even more than that is the Burning Arrow. So Val Burning Arrow now it has a very short soul gain prevention, which means you're going to be able to chain those on bosses. You're going to be able to use them to ignite bosses and just use it as much as possible. This is a very strong starter with also the buffs to the breach stones. You're going to be able to farm your own Zov's nature pretty easy because you also have breach on map device. You have Atlas regions for breach, so Zov's nature is gonna be extremely easy to farm. Doesn't matter if the price is you can do that in SSF so easily. It's so easy to get Zov's Nurture now. It's like you're gonna have it in the first couple days if you want in SSF, right? So it's extremely easy to gear. It's extremely easy to level, even though you have to switch to a bow, to a different skill later on. But still, I would highly recommend Val Burning Arrow Elementalist. It's a very strong starter. The next one is Toxic Rain Pathfinder. Yes, Toxic Rain Pathfinder has been nerfed, but it is still perfectly fine. The things that have been nerfed is the Fortify. Fortify has been basically removed from this ascendancy. Pathfinder no longer has access to Fortify in that way. You can still use Fortify if you like reserve half of your health and use a very like small healing flask that heals for over a long duration. You can get Fortify that way, and that's, I think, is the meta how that anointment will be used. But as a Pathfinder now, we don't worry about that. We just make sure that we have really good defensive flasks otherwise. And instead of anointing Hardened Scars, we anoint something like Corruption, which will give us more damage. Another thing that changed is the slow is a little bit less on the pods, which is fine. We don't care about that much, even though it's like a nice defensive mechanic, but it's fine. The slow is a little bit reduced. The monster still will not catch up to you because you're running at 1,000 miles per hour. And we also get a little bit of a reduction in the base spread of the pods. However, they scale now with AoE. The spread scales with AoE. What does that mean? That means that as a default, your damage will be actually more. Before you start scaling your AoE, your pods will overlap more. You will have slightly smaller area where the pods spread, which means slightly smaller clear, but as soon as you add something like Dying Sun to the build, you will have enough projectiles to clear everything very comfortably, and even before that it will be comfortable because Toxic Rain is very easy to use and aim. Because you simply like shoot up and target wherever you want it to fall. It's very easy to use that way, so that is not an issue at all. In fact, we're getting more damage. And until you get to very high levels of gear, the scaling of it is basically in your favor. You get an extra anointment for more damage, and you get the lower spread by default for more damage. So Toxic Rain for the low budget has actually been buffed, but for higher budget it has been nerfed if you wanna scale it in the same way. We'll have to see how much the AoE affects the spread, but it opens up a new possibility of going, for example, with concentrated effect like Conk effect, and then also other skills that can potentially reduce your AoE might be actually the meta, and you might want to actually aim for low AoE and just like pinpoint all the damage, not the support pinpoint, but like just really pinpoint all the damage, concentrate it in one area and have much bigger single target damage that way with much less coverage. So that might be also the meta, but it's a still perfectly good starter that will get you to T16s and kill Awakener 8 and get whatever currency you need for whatever you want to do in the league. The next one is Val Ground Slam, and here in my recommendations I wrote that you can play Val Ground Slam as a champion, gladiator, raider, Barbie doll, your grandma. It doesn't matter, the skill is Omega broken. The skill is insane. Every single person I saw, like, and I watched some content creators who I think they're pretty smart people, they know what they're talking about, and some of them are like very laid back and chill. When they saw the Val Ground Slam change, they all freaked out. They all went crazy. They all went like, what the fuck is this monstrosity? Val Ground Slam has been buffed to an absurd degree. If you were interested in playing melee, go with Val Ground Slam, go with something like Champion or Gladiator. You can go with Gladiator and use Bleed, you can go with Champion, use Impale. Whatever you want to do, this is going to be insane. Val Ground Slam now can take advantage of Warcries, which are extra multipliers for your damage, and it has the highest in the game for out of all attacks. It has the highest added damage effectiveness, which means any added flat damage you put on that skill is gonna scale like crazy. What does that mean? Can Val Ground Slam be used with unarmed? Can you do like a hollow palm technique for insane slams? Dude, you can do such crazy things with this skill now. You can build it in 1,000 different ways because the damage is just going to be astronomically high. It is the most ridiculous and crazy change we have seen, and it is completely inconsistent with everything else in the game. So Val Ground Slam, Champion or Gladiator, in hardcore are going to be just untouchable. Nothing comes close to those. They're going to melt every single boss. They're ridiculous. They're absolutely ridiculous. So, honorable mentions. I have also some honorable mentions for example, Val Ice Nova Occultist. Occultist has been changed in a way that you can actually play Ice Nova with it fairly well, because it has the benefits to like the actual damage, and it gets you like the not the damage over time, but like just hit damage for cold damage, and it has a pretty big AoE. So also you can do that with like Hierophant, you can do that with Inquisitor, a bunch of different builds can do that, but Val Ice Nova has been buffed to the point that in the absence of very easily accessible Explodey chest, you might want to look toward Val Ice Nova for something that will chain across the packs and kill multiple enemies at the same time. You can also do that as a Pathfinder, for example. The reason why Pathfinder is good for Val skills is because it can use flasks that allow you to reduce the soul gain prevention and like gain more souls very easily, even on boss fights. So that's why Pathfinder is like a really good ascendancy that you should look at whenever you're considering any builds based on the Val skills. And then also Cobra Lash Assassin, and with the heavy nerfs to Bladefall Blade Blast, which still is playable probably, but it's much weaker. And then Blade Vortex, which received a lot of nerfs, particularly to the AoE and the duration. It's gonna be much worse to play. Cobra Lash Assassin has pretty solid damage. It's a very fun build to play. It has received several buffs in this league that are very indirect and don't touch it specifically, but still make the skill stronger this league than in the previous league. These two skills are not something that is so easy to start with as the other ones that I recommended, but there's something that maybe as your second character, or maybe if you're a bit more advanced character or advanced player, or you want to play something a little bit off meta, you can try those. And then my thoughts about the juicer builds of the league. So with the heavy nerfs to BV, there might be some other options, right? So the couple of things that I considered for the juicer builds, which is like the character that will just run juiced maps and just destroy, obliterate them and run them very quickly, I would consider two main things. There are of course more. There are things like Val Arc, for example, like Val Arc, maybe Pathfinder or Elementalist or Inquisitor, something like that. But I would consider very highly EK Nova because of few of the changes, and then also Val Power Siphon Wonder. So Power Siphon has received a ridiculous change. You get now up to like 150 to 200% more crit multi on that skill. It is absolutely ridiculous. You can do something like Raider or Pathfinder. You can do something like what else? Raider, Pathfinder, probably not Inquisitor, maybe Elementalist, but probably not. So probably something like Raider or Pathfinder. With that, Val Power Siphon Wonder is going to be very strong. These builds are like high budget though, right? So you are going to need to invest a lot of currency into those, but they're going to be very strong. And then another one is the EK Nova. So because of the new Vinctors, there are two new Vinctors flasks. So there is one new, like there are actually three. They're very different now. So one of them can convert 50% of physical to lightning, and one of them can make your shocks spread, and you can use that with Impulsa for easy explodes, convert all of your EK damage to lightning, and take advantage of damage, like elemental damage exposure from Raider, for example, and have a lot of attack speed through the onslaught and onslaught effect, and movement speed for super quick shield charge, and then also cast speed for more damage because again, onslaught effect. So Raider is like a perfect ascendancy for this, like converting your EK. You can do like Eternity Shroud EK as well. This is going to be very strong build for juicing, very good build to play with a Headhunter. So this is probably what I'm going to be doing as my second character, to just juice the maps and run them really quickly. Most likely going to be doing like an EK Nova Raider, and it's going to be extremely fun. EK Nova is like one of my favorite skills in the game. So those are the builds that I would recommend for the league start. They are very easy to start. There is a lot of variety between attacks, bows, mines, dots, bossing, clear, everything you can want in a league start is here. You can find some also off meta picks, and then we also have the juicer builds that you can invest a lot of currency into, and they're gonna be extremely fun and satisfying to play when they become really fast. So thank you guys for watching. Check out my stream at Asmodeus Stream. I'm gonna be streaming the league start whenever the league starts. Thank you guys for watching and see you next time.